Right, beetroot ketchup. Right, in the UK we can buy cooked beetroots in these 500 g packs, but if you get around about a pound and a quarter of beetroots, just cook them up, boil them up, and they'll be ready to use. I find these really handy in these packs, and my brother Richard and I eat these quite a lot. We're rather fond of them. You'll need about half a medium to small brown onion, the juice of half a lemon, 2 garlic cloves. There's a fairly generous teaspoon of salt, and there's about 3/4 of a teaspoon of spice mix. Now the spice mix is for sweet spices, so it will be your cake spices, or maybe your pumpkin spice, or British standard mixed spice is perfectly good for it. You'll need some sugar and you'll need some vinegar. I'm using a white wine vinegar. You can use cider vinegar or you can use malt vinegar, it's up to you, but for this one I'm using 120 ml of white wine vinegar, which I've got in this jug. Now I'm going to top that up to about 240 ml, so that's diluted 1 for 1, so with water. That's going to go straight into my pot, which I'm then going to get going. I'm going to chop up my onion very finely and add that to the pot. My salt, my spice mix. Lemon juice gives this a really nice little kick and a fruity flavour. And also my garlic, which I'm going to chop up. That can go in. You'll need a stick blender for this, or you'll need to decant it into your blender once it's cooked. Into that I'm going to put 2 heaped dessert spoons full of sugar, and I may adjust that later with some more, but we'll see how it goes on. Beets we buy in the UK, they're generally rather sweet, so that will determine whether or not I need to add any more sugar later on. Right, let's just get this cut open. Don't want to waste any of that gorgeous liquid, so I'm going to actually tip that out into my pot before I start chopping up my beetroot. Now the beetroot's already cooked, so it's low priority on boiling. We don't want to do too much of that, so let me get that all chopped up. Beetroot is messy, there's no two ways about it. It's a messy thing to work with, but it's a great thing. So now I'm going to chop up my beets. Real easy to do, straight into the mix. And beetroot ketchup can be used in place of any way you would ordinarily use tomato ketchup. So what we're going to do now is bring that up to the boil, and I'll get back to you. Alright, while that's coming up to a boil, let's talk a little bit about bottling. For bottling, I always prefer to use glass if I can. It's nice to have plastic squeezy ones, but plastic always gives off vapours, and it's not, at the end of the day, it's never going to be as good as glass. So I'll always prefer to use glass. Now, because these have had vinegar in them, and I've just used the vinegar in this, it is effectively sterile because it's been used for that purpose. So we can proceed without sterilising them as long as it's a freshly used up bottle. But what I tend to do is, if the bottle's been stood around for any time, I make sure it's been sterilised. So I'll sterilise it with something like Milton fluid, or you can even use a little bit of bleach, as long as you thoroughly clean it and rinse it afterwards. Alright, so that's very important, because if you don't sterilise it, your ketchup will develop a bloom on top and it will decay rather quickly. So make sure you're using clean, sterilised bottles. And also, if you're using a funnel, make sure your funnel has been cleaned and sterilised as well. Right, I'm going to get my hand blender ready and then wait for this to come up to boil. Alright, my hand blender's all ready and prepared, and if you're using a hand blender, make sure that the part that comes in contact with the ketchup has been sterilised as well. Okay, that's coming up nicely to a boil. So the next thing I want to do is get that off the boil and start blending it. Alright, I've got that blended. I've managed to sprinkle it liberally all over my kitchen in the process, but not to worry. Now I need to give it a taste. Give it a taste and see where we are with it. Okay, that's nice, but it needs a bit more sugar. So I'm going to add another dessert spoon of sugar to it. That makes 3 dessert spoons of sugar overall. And I'll stir that in, and we'll get that back on the heat now, just to let it simmer for a minute or two. Just going to have another quick taste of that now I've stirred in the sugar. That's good, that's on the money. Real nice. And the spiciness is real nice too. That's really good, enjoying that. So I'm bringing it up to the boil, just going to let that simmer for a minute or two and then allow it to cool down to 80 degrees Celsius before bottling it. Okay, that's cooled down sufficiently for me to bottle it. So we start filling it up. So there you go, 1 bottle of beetroot ketchup. That will keep, like I said, provided you've been very careful with your sterilisation, there's no reason why that can't keep for a couple of months, and I very much doubt it will last that long because it's rather moreish. If you have enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to follow my channel, please subscribe, and be sure to click the bell icon to receive notification of all my upcoming videos. Thanks for watching.